I was just going to set the scene first of all. Thanks, Maddie. We've fiddled around a little bit with the primary outcome. Well, a couple of times actually. We've stuck with the hospital admission within 18 months of randomization. We've fiddled around with this second point a bit because initially we were concerned that complications while someone was having a lap chole would not be picked up, but then we of course realized that it was all going to be picked up on the 90-day CRF that we eventually and very gladly have introduced. And then the complications of laparoscopic cholecystectomy of a hospital stay greater than 2 days means that we're not just picking up sort of non-specific abdominal pain post-lap chole. And then the third thing is the ERCP complications. So there are subtle changes on the primary outcome, but that's where we are at the moment. Would I bet that we won't change this again? I'm nearly there, but we have changed it twice so far. But the theme is the same. Next slide, thanks, Maddie. The reason I put this slide up is because I can still not manage to give you the inclusion when it comes down to LFTs. So what I talk about is the exclusion, and I say if it's greater than 50 for a bilirubin, or both the ALT and ALP phos have to be now 3 times greater than normal. So they've both got to be 3 times greater than normal to be excluded. And I'm sorry, that's the way I put it because I struggle describing it from an inclusion point of view. Next slide, thanks. So here we are with sites. You know, back before COVID in March, we really were doing exceptionally well. Maddie had done an amazing job recruiting and doing site visits on all these centres. We had far reached our target of 30 for our pilot phase, which was around about February. So we were well over that, and we're now nearly at 50, which is what our target is, and we've got other centres queuing up really to join us. That's obviously all been stopped at the moment. Other people have got other things to be involved in, like intensive care and COVID trials. So, but we were doing extremely well there, and we've achieved 50 centres, which I think in its own right is a great achievement. Next slide, thanks. So this slide really speaks for itself. It's a bit like watching, I don't know how many of you watch any cricket on TV, but when the first team have batted and you see their progress as the overs go along on the x-axis, and then you see the chasing team, and we were doing so well in the orange, amber, brown line. And then on March, whatever it was, the line became straight, very straight and horizontal. So we reopened in June, July time, and there are 1 or 2 centres who have done exceptionally well, and we were going to hear from 1 or 2 of those. And some of us have struggled along recruiting a few, and some have failed to open at all, which is completely understandable. But and I think, as Jane put it the other day, I think we shouldn't regard this as I mean, I think we just regard it as the trial. The study has been paused, it's been stopped, and then we need to restart and recalibrate when we get the chance. This is certainly not a failing of the study. We were doing exceptionally well. To have 2,000 patients in the pilot study, pilot phase is quite quite exceptional. And I think Jane would agree with that, who's got huge experience in lots of trials. Next slide, thanks. So I put this slide up because I have continually said that although all these patients are going to provide hopefully fantastic and interesting information at the end of the day, I still have a feeling that it's the, if you like, the medium risk patients are going to be the really interesting ones. The ones, it's our definition really, there isn't, you can't look it up and find a definition. The low risk we've classified really as patients who've got normal LFTs, normal caliber of ultrasound, of bile duct on ultrasound, and have basically got stones in the gallbladder on ultrasound. Whereas the medium risk patients are those who've got deranged LFTs and maybe a marginally dilated bile duct, say of 7 or 8 mil. And I think it's these medium risk patients that are going to provide the interesting data ultimately about the merits of MRCP. We've all seen patients, I had one the other day who had an MRCP purely because their ALT was twice normal. Everything else was, there were no risk factors at all. And what the slight disappointing thing for me is when you look at this slide, bottom right, the overall number of urgent patients, which is where you get most of your medium risk patients, is still only 23%. And I think that is an area where we need to really work on, is trying to recruit the urgent patients, the acute referrals, the admissions, the people who walk through the door with pain. Those are the really interesting patients and the ones that we need to focus on. Overall, medium risk patients are about 1/3 of our overall risk, and they go into the medium risk if they have any of the LFTs or the bile duct stuff not normal. So someone with a slightly raised ALT will go into the medium risk group. That's how those groups have been, that's how Michelle's done that. Next slide, and last one. So just to give you an example, with bilirubin, you can see even the, just to say that an urgent case, it's an elective case can be in the moderate risk, even though that's a patient that's come through the GP referral. They can, and I could show you slides of ALT and ALP phos, and you get abnormal tests from those very low risk, those elective patients, and they therefore go into the moderate risk. And it's just to show that the urgent patients are more likely to be in the moderate risk, and therefore they have a high, we're specifically looking at bilirubin, they have a higher bilirubin compared to the low risk, both in the elective and the urgent. So in summary, I think we need to continue to work towards trying to, I'd love to get up to 1/3 of patients are in the urgent category. So anything that means we can recruit more patients from the acute setting would be great.